What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and one that I have definitely been anticipating because I have become a huge fan of this band. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Witch Vomit, Funeral Sanctum. This comes out on the 5th of April on 20 Buck Spin Records. This band formed in 2012 in Portland, Oregon, where like so many death metal bands form. This is their third full-length overall. We actually went over their last full-length, Buried Deep in a Bottomless Grave. In fact, that was like my number 2 or number 3 album of 2019. I absolutely love that album. And we went over their last EP, Abhorrent Rapture, which was a little bit different overall. And for those that don't know, this is old school death metal, just flat out riffy, disgusting. But this album is a little bit of a change, like just ever so slightly, and we kind of anticipated that with the last one, Abhorrent Rapture, having more like dissonant riffs, kind of a colder atmosphere. But the main thing that this band brings still are riffs.
Yeah, I've pretty much been into this band since we reviewed them back in 2019. It's kind of hard to let go of a awesome band that does awesome things. These guys have always been super riffy, which has been really cool. And of course, who doesn't like cold, dark, dissonant riffs? Me, obviously, if you've been watching this channel at all in the last 5 years. But yeah, I knew this was coming out, and I was stoked to see it drop a couple days early on YouTube.
Now, the first single that was launched for this one was Blood of Abomination, and I noticed instantly that there was a bit of a difference. This album definitely has a little bit more in the way of black metal as like a seasoning on it versus probably any of their other releases. Even compared to Abhorrent Rapture, there's a lot more, I would say, like melodic black metal or melodic black and death metal, like Necrophobic, Dissection. I got a lot of Dissection vibes on here. But this band has kind of worked a balance between that and their sound that they have cemented over the years, which is just gross, grimy, disgusting, riffy death metal. There's still a lot of autopsy worship overall, but
for sure,
man, the main thing, again, are riffs. This band is so riff-driven, and the riffs carry this. They keep every song very interesting. The song structure is generally built on like clever, harmonized riffs, really cool tremolos, awesome riffy breakdowns, and, well, kind of a different atmosphere in here.
Yeah, and it's not full of your standard chuggy riffs, although those do occur throughout this album. Most of it is carried by these really awesome tremolo riffs, and it seems like they get more evil and sinister as the record goes on, too. Like, most notably, the song Dominion of a Darkened Realm. That one is particularly sinister as it's not so much reliant on the tremolos in the upper range. There's a lot of lower level tremolos in there, and I am a sucker for lower registered tremolo.
Decaying Angel Flesh was one that was kind of a standout. You get some thrashier sections on there. There's some really great gallops. It's a very energetic song, and it kind of pivots back and forth between like slower, more brooding moments and just explosive tremolo riffs and really just clever tags at the ends of the riffs too. They always have some sort of like interesting accent that they pepper in to kind of spice it up and keep it from sounding, well, you know, just kind of like stock 90s death metal worship, which, I mean, there's a lot of it, and I listen to pretty much all of it because 90s death metal, that's the reason.
I got huge Immolation vibes off the riffs in that song. Not so much the drum patterns, because it's not Steve Shaley by any means. The riffs have a lot of like stop-start motion to them that I think Immolation would have. That song just in particular reminded me of that.
Even on the breakdowns, there are these really interesting tags. Serpentine Shadows, I think, is one of the big standouts there. The breakdown, especially the breakdown. There's this really cool, like, trilling accent that's at the end of these big, beefy chugs. And, I don't know, it just kind of adds this little flair of, like, extra evil on it. And, again, the atmosphere is very different. Like, if you compared this to Buried Deep in a Bottomless Grave, there's a lot of, like, dripping and oozing. And even the vocals on there, there's, like, more effects. There's more just kind of grossness to them and more gurgle. Here, it's a more straightforward roar. Occasionally, you get some, like, higher blackened screams, but that's very minimal. But the whole vibe of this feels like it's going more for, like, evil and blasphemy rather than gross out, just puke, snot, zombie, barf things, you know, the stuff that makes every Autopsy album cover wonderful. Except for shit fun. There's nothing fun about that album cover. That is not a Tootsie Roll.
No, it is not. And then, of course, the production here is sick as always. Another one done by Evan Mirsky, who's worked with these guys over the last couple records. And then mastered by Dan Lowndes of Cruciamentum. I mean, come on, what do you want? The guitars are snarling. The bass has a good, like, rich, kind of sultry tone to it.
I noticed that right away with the intro track, Dying Embers, which honestly is an intro I wouldn't complain about. It opens up with riffs. It kind of builds the mood. Yep. But when the bass comes in, like, dude, it's this, like, wave of warmth. And it kind of contrasts how, like, kind of cold and rigid the guitar sound occasionally.
And the bass guitar, too, holds that same tone throughout the entire record. I listened to this earlier today on headphones at work, and it was something that I wanted to point out that caught my attention. Normally, when you have snarling, grimy guitars, normally you have some sort of effect or filter on the bass to make it match that. And in this case, the bass was very warm throughout. I thought the drums had a real natural sound to them, although the kicks were a little clicky at times. I don't know if that was just to kind of make them power through a little bit more of the grime and the dirt that's on this album, but I thought they were a little clicky.
I think it makes them stand out a little bit because the bass is very dominant on here.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, like, it wasn't a big issue. Like, only occasionally did it sound, you know, like a little clicky. Like the isolated drums that start off Domain of a Darkened Realm. Yeah. You can hear a little bit of that click, but once it all comes together, it's like, yeah, you know what? Everything sounds great here.
Yeah, I mean, it sits kind of nicely. I'm not going to say it's overly clicky. Like, everything sits where it's supposed to, and that's really good.
I also have to say that I think this is more melodic. Like, different than, you know, their past albums in terms of, like, well, how they write the riffs and just how they're playing them. Like, this band has always been catchy. I think this band writes unbelievably catchy riffs. But there is definitely more, I would say, like, harmonized riffs on here. And again, with that blackened element, you get those cold melodies that pop up. Black Wings of Desolation, I think in particular, just has some really good, haunting, cold, icy tremolos on it.
And that gross groove in the beginning, dude.
Yeah.
Stank face. Just bleh.
But they found, like, kind of a good balance between, you know, what they did on Abhorrent Rapture and what they did on Buried Deep in a Bottomless Grave. And I think it really works here. You kind of get, like, different seasonings peppered in what they usually do. And overall, it gives it kind of a blackened death metal feel, but not entirely. Like, I wouldn't call this blackened death metal. I would still call this straight up death metal. But there's enough in here to make you question it.
Yeah, the last track, the title track, actually, I thought was particularly blackened. Kind of like blackened thrash, almost.
Yeah, there's, like, a good give and take between, like, the faster sections and these slow, droning riffs. And the instrumental that leads up to it, Abject Silence, kind of sets the mood being a little bit more somber, you know, more melancholic. I mean, it does have the word funeral in it. It probably should be. But again, I like how it starts off more bleak, and then as the song goes on, it gets more sinister and evil, culminating in a super heavy end to that song. Like, it's just a monstrous riff that comes in just to close it out. Now, this did have some minor issues, and they're not ones that are, like, total deal breakers on here, but things I noticed. And Darkened Spirits. I really like that song. As soon as it came in, I was like, dude, it's got like kind of a blackened thrash vibe to it. It's vicious right from the rip, and I was like, dude, yeah, this is gonna get that thrashy sort of, like, bite to it. It's a little bit snarlier. The vocals kind of change a little bit towards the end of it, but it's a minute long. And it feels like an incomplete idea.
I mean, it's a barn burner for sure, but it does cut off, I think, before it plateaus.
Yeah. Actually, like, it's still kind of got this, like, incline. Like, it does break it down to, like, this really cool, like, incantation-ish sort of, like, breakdown. Definitely. It's vicious sounding and then kind of gets back to the speedy stuff, and you're kind of expecting a little bit more there, like, you know, another breakdown where there's, like, a lead break or something. It feels like it's moving towards that. It doesn't feel like it should end where it ends, which it just kind of ends with, like, a final grunt. And the fact that Abject Silence, which is sort of just a quick lead-in to the title track, follows it, I don't know, like, it's just maybe oddly placed on the album, too, because you get these back-to-back very short tracks. One that I feel is intentionally short just as a build-up, and then another one that, I don't know, I feel like it could have been, like, a little bit more.
And Blood of Abomination, too. I know that's the single that they released, but that song just struck me off the bat as being also a little short. It has a really abrupt ending to it. And while that's a cool song, and there's definitely some crazy tremolo harmonies in there that I really enjoy, I also thought that one cut off a little too soon.
Yeah, like right from the rip, that song reminded me of Dissection's The Somber Lane. And you know, it just has that sort of vibe to it. The riffs are great. The energy is sinister and dark. It's just got, you know, a big presence to it. And it kind of cuts off a little bit early. Like, I was a little shocked to see it cut off so soon.
It's just such an abrupt ending. It's like, bam, we're done. Like, wait a minute.
Are you?
Wait a minute. Because there's so many awesome moments in that song, whether it be that really crazy tremolo harmony or that really riffy, groovy thing right before it cuts off. You're like, man, this is good, and then it's done. I'm like, well, okay.
Now, this band's like no stranger to shorter songs, but I feel in the past, like, they feel a little bit more complete. And with this inclusion of new elements, namely black metal, I think there's room to expand, and I feel like they just kind of teased what they were capable of on Blood of Abomination and in Darkened Spirits. There's, room to kind of, like, open up the song a little bit, get some more lavish, even more melodic bridges. Like, honestly, if they decided to go the route of, again, dissection and pepper in, like, a almost folky harmony in there,
yeah,
it would have totally fit. I mean, it would have fit with everything. If you're looking at the album cover, it totally would have fit too. Like, this doesn't necessarily look like a death metal album cover.
No.
When I saw it, I was like, man, I feel like this is going to sound a bit blackened. And I was right.
Right. I mean, there were some folky melodies in the interlude, the Abject Silence towards the end there. It got really kind of like Melodeath folky.
Yeah, actually, I kind of thought of like Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to lead you in for the big bummerville that was coming. Because I mean, yeah, that's what Paradise Lost does. Like, they remind you that life is sad and it's rainy and it's cold and that'll only last forever. So don't worry.
Kind of like the weather this past week.
Yeah,
here it's currently snowing. So there's that.
Currently Ohio, so yeah, we're just used to it because Ohio's weather's bullshit.
So overall, I'm going to give this record 4 stars. I really dug this album. It is very riffy and very catchy. All these tremolo melodies are placed so well in these songs, and most of them are elongated enough to get them stuck in your head. It's still very groovy. It's still very heavy. But I like the more like sinister and creepy vibes that are going on here versus the crazy heft they had in the past. And while I do miss some of those really hefty moments, I just dug all the sinister, evil harmonies that are littered all over this album. Most of these songs hit really hard. Even Blood of Abomination, that I thought ended really abruptly, was still a really good song. My only knock would be the short as fuck in Darkened Spirits, which I felt had a little bit more room to breathe, but nonetheless, I really dug this, and I really dug the vibe on this record. If you're a fan of bands like Mortiferum, Immolation, Incantation, Morbid Angel, Phobophilic, Dissection, all these things, and really, if you just like Witch Vomit, you're still gonna love the shit out of this record, so 4 stars.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 4 stars as well. This is a little bit different, but, I mean, there's still that air of witch vomity familiarity to it. Like, it still brings all the rotten riffs. There's just, like, a different coat on it. Like, the atmosphere is a little bit different. And honestly, I think where they really, like, fully embrace, like, the more blackened aspects, they do a great job. This band just knows how to write catchy riffs that don't come across as, like, cheesy or stock. Like, they're just really intricate and hooky, and again, they play them for the right amount of time for them to get stuck in your head.
Yep.
I still have all the riffs from their last album stuck in my head, and I imagine that's going to be the same case here. The production is wonderful. The whole vibe of this album just being a little bit less gross and more sinister and evil. I don't know, it gives me a different reason to listen to this one versus their other albums. And while I do miss some of the old rottenness and dripping filth and whatever they peppered in their atmosphere, I like what they're doing here. And this kind of opens up a whole new chapter for them. Again, if you're a big fan of Witch Vomit, that's pretty obvious. But also, again, like, it's a dissection. There's still a lot of, like, incantation moments. There's still some autopsy worship moments on here. Pretty much, basically, if you like 90s death metal and riffs, you're probably going to love this. So definitely check it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel up in the banner in the bottom right-hand corner. But if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have new shirts. We have old shirts that are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats, too. So if you want any of that stuff, click the link down below.
And surely, last but not least, thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing and paying attention to us and continually watching these videos and hanging out and commenting and all the wonderful things you do to make this feel like more than just a YouTube channel. Feels like we've built some kind of family here, and I'm really thankful for that. that it's turned out this way.
We're your weird cousins you don't talk to for obvious reasons.
Right, we're the ones that are at the family reunion in the back of the room, and we're just hanging out by ourselves.
You just look at us like, how the fuck are you not in jail?
Right? Anyway, we thank you guys. Tons of album reviews coming your way. Discography rankings. Next in line is Meshuggah. Collection updates. States of Metal. The Is It Metal or Is It Not series. Tons of stuff. And we do it, once again, all for you. Thank you. I'm going to let Nick thank you, because I've already thanked you a bunch. Thank you.
Oh, it's my turn to thank you. I'm going to thank you deep, hard, and leave it all sticky on you. Because I want my thanks to stick to you. That's the main point. That wasn't a reference to anything else. No, seriously, you guys are absolutely awesome. And yeah, tons of content coming your way. And once again, I will be at the Metal and Beer Fest in Philly on the 12th and 13th. So if you happen to see me there, if you're in the area, you're going to the show, come up, say hi. We'll chat some metal for a bit, provided, again, there's not a band playing because I won't hear you because band loud. And, of course, at the end of May, we will be at MDF, and, yeah, it's going to be a big old riffy party.
Oh, my
and
God.
I can't wait. But, yeah, you guys are absolutely awesome, and we will catch you later.